Tiffany and Karen. Just wow, seriously. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And thank you, Kathy and James, for such a great introduction. Just a minute, like we wake, all the technology can wake up here and join us. So I'm going to talk to you today about becoming unfrozen, living and loving life now. And I know to look at me, most of you wouldn't realize this, but I am a firefighter. For the past 18 years, I have served as a school psychologist in the public school system. And right out of school, I started working in a place that I call the front lines of education. It was out in Commerce City, Colorado, and it's a place where the industrial plants and the smokestacks form the skylines, and the water may or may not be safe enough to drink. And I took a position in a school with 650 elementary school students. And it was a school where the mental health needs were so great, we had a padded room so that in case when the children were melting down, they wouldn't hurt themselves or others. And the sort of fires that I was called upon to put out looked like parental drug addiction. It looked like getting their basic needs met, like winter coats and having enough love to feel safe and secure. SWAT teams would come and they'd detonate suspicious objects out in the parking lot. There were plenty of fires to address. But in those days, I had joined education because I had stars in my eyes and I felt that I could make a difference in the lives of kids. And so in those days I did. I worked with Spirit and we brought light-filled activities into the school system. I had friends that were teaching the dances of universal peace to kids and were teaching peace strategies. And I invited them to come into the school, and one day we had 650 kids dancing together the dances of universal peace. It was truly miraculous. But over the years, the fires became greater and greater, and I felt myself slowly burning out. And over time, I ended up in an actual closet, a closet that didn't have windows, and I was doing nearly 7 hours a day of special education paperwork. And as I sat there in my closet, I had many reasons for staying in my closet. One, I was a single parent and nearly only parent at the time. Two, I felt, well, the administration really believes that I should be doing paperwork rather than sharing my gifts and talents, so this is where I shall be. Or three, I had great big dreams and creative energy inside, but I was scared if I ventured out, I would surely find financial ruin. And so I sat there in my closet and I developed what Brené Brown refers to as a shame hangover. The longer I sat there and did my paperwork and the longer I didn't share my gifts and talents, the more I felt the shame inside, and the more I sat there and did my paperwork and didn't share my gifts and talents. I became, well, frozen in my life circumstances. And I don't know if some of you have seen the Disney movie or the Broadway musical Frozen, but let's see. It's about two sisters. And one of them, Elsa, has the powers to freeze the things that she touches. And she's really scared of her powers. So she goes out into the wilderness and she goes and she creates this ice castle where she goes for healing. I don't know if any of you, but I know that as in our humanness, sometimes we have to go out into the wilderness to create our own healing. And as she's out there, as she's out there, she builds this castle and she sits with her powers, but she herself is frozen as well. She's frozen in place. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this as well, where you felt frozen by your life conditions at certain times. You wonder, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what God's big plan is for my life? There must be something bigger out there, but you feel frozen by those conditions and you're uncertain as to what to do next. Oh, let's go this way. You know, author Barbara Taylor Brown talks about this state in her book, An Altar in the World. She's in that book, she is just completing a degree where she's invested so much time and money. And she's coming to the completion of the degree and she's confused. She doesn't know how is she going to move forward and express. So she begins to pray and to ask God, what is it that you have planned for me in my life? And she talks about, as she's in her place of study, she finds this old mansion one night. And there's this rickety fire escape, and it's up the side of the mansion, and she clambers up the side to rest at the top, feeling the creaky stairs all the way. And when she gets up there, she writes about it like this. She said, that fire escape turned out to be an excellent place to pray. Doing something that scared me cranked up my courage. Escaping up instead of down prepared me for other reversals that were to come. The wind smelled like the moon. I went up there so many times in the weeks that followed that I no longer remember which night it was that God finally answered my prayer. I don't think it was right at the beginning when I was still praying my prayers using words. I think it came later when I had graduated to sounds. Up there on that fire escape, I learned to pray the way a wolf howls. And then one night, when my whole heart was open to hearing from God what I was supposed to do for my life, God said, anything that pleases you. At one level, that answer was no help at all. The ball was back securely in my court. I could be a priest or a circus worker. God really did not care. At another level, I was so relieved that I sledded down the stairs that night. Whatever I decided to do for a living, it was not what I did, but how I did it that mattered. So it's not what we do, but how we do it that matters. You know, there's those questions that keep us in that state of frozenness. What's my divine purpose? What am I supposed to be doing right here? And, I like to go that way. Thomas Hora, he's a famous psychiatrist, and he developed what is known as meta-psychiatry, and he wrote this little booklet called What Does God Want?, where he talks about that very question, how we are deeply wired and programmed to express the God qualities within us. And he sums it up by saying, when we are committed to being manifestations of God's qualities, we fulfill our destiny by glowing for God as beneficial presences in the world. Yum, right? So according to Dr. Hora, our main purpose is to be a beneficial presence in the world. It matters not what we do, but how we do it. In the midst of my frozenness, I decided to take a little action, and I signed up for ministerial school because in my closet, I sat there with one foot in this world and one foot always looking at the horizon, wishing for what's next. So I signed up for ministerial school, and I went to a ministerial retreat for students down in Orlando, Florida, where Dr. Michelle Medrano had a wonderful workshop activity for us. She handed us all a sheet of paper, and on one side at the top it had My Life Now, and it had all the areas of our life: relationship, family, recreation, spiritual practice, health, well-being, and we were to fill out how we were expressing in our life now. And then, after we were done with that, she instructed us to turn the paper over. And at the top of the other side of the sheet was My Life in My Ministry. And guess what? It had the same categories. And we were to write how we would express in our life when we were in our ministry, in our greater service. And as I was debriefing with my dyad partner, I had this profound realization that I still had one foot securely in the now, but I had one foot waiting for when I would be of service, when I would be in my ministry. And I thought to myself, if I'm expecting to be on that joy train then, how will I ever get there if I'm not on the joy train now? So I ask you, are you on the joy train presently in your life? Martha Beck has a quote that says, "The way we do anything is the way we do everything." And that activity that I did in ministerial retreat is what I call the beginning of the great melt in my life, where I started to unfreeze in the places where I was frozen. And I'm going to show you how to melt in your life too. So I came back to work, and I had the thought, all right, so if Elsa got me into this frozen business, then Elsa is going to get me out of this frozen business. And incidentally, coincidentally, synchronistically, at that same time, someone put $60 in my mailbox anonymously at work. So I went out and I took that money and I bought myself an Elsa costume. And I went to the kindergarten and the first grade teachers, and every day they do movement breaks in the classroom. And I know that they sing that beautiful song that Karen and Stephanie sang, "Let It Go." And I said, I want to come to your class and I want to sing "Let It Go." And I'm going to be dressed as Elsa. And so I showed up and we danced together. We created ice castles and threw snowflakes and we raised we danced together. And it was amazing. And so as I was walking back to my office, I heard them all going to recess and they were like, "We met the real Elsa!" Yay! And not only that, but I realized as Elsa, it had added behavioral intervention advantages. You know, when Johnny was escaping from down the hallway, I just yelled, "Freeze!" Sometimes it worked. Not always. Not always. A few weeks later, that first grade teacher came to me, and she said, we were having career day in our classroom. And one little girl, she raised her hand and she said, "I want to work in the schools." And her teacher said, "Oh, you want to be a teacher?" And she said, "Oh, no. I want to be the Elsa of the school." And that's where I began to find my heart and to melt into my present place. So how can you become unfrozen in those areas of your life where you feel that you may be stuck in the present conditions, in the life conditions, whether it be your health or your career or a relationship or just basic thought patterns that keep you so securely in that place? Well, I would say the first way is M for mindfulness. Relaxing into what is present in front of you and doing what is in front of you right now became my mantra. And I believe it's a mantra that begins the melting process in our life, where we slow down and we tune in to become aware of our own thoughts and feelings and get an observation of our life, get some space and expansiveness so that we can step back and see life for what it is. What it also does is I believe it opens up a sanctuary of infinite time. And when we are fully and securely in infinite time, we're able to draw meaning that feeds us from the present moment. So M is for that mindfulness that gives you that expansiveness of spirit and present in your now. hey, check that out. Hey, I can point to stuff. It's a laser, Karen. I can point to stuff. Cool. All right, that's fun. It's always a surprise. I don't know how to turn it off, so I might be, pointing at somebody now. Anyway, E is for evolve your inner world. And evolving your inner world is to spend time in your stillness and to show up for your spiritual practice so that you can align with the divine. Because as you begin to align with the divine, and I don't care if it's prayer or time in nature or meditation, and maybe your prayer does look like howling like a wolf at the moon, and maybe it looks like, I do want to turn that thing off. Okay, maybe it's distracting me. I'm like, whoo. Maybe it looks like spending time with contemplation with sacred word. Earlier this year, my spiritual community and I joined a meditation challenge where we all installed this Insight timer app on our phone. And we agreed to show up every day this year and practice meditation in community using social media. It can, but and initially I was a little resistant. I was like, I don't want another social media thing that ties me to something. But what I realized is that there is an opportunity in there to sit with a bell, to learn from spiritual teachers through teachings and podcasts and informational classes, or to have guided meditation. There were several choices, and I have to tell you, showing up every day now, I'm like, I can't wait for that time in the morning. So what I've also known is that the more time that we spend in our inner world, no matter where we are on that path of becoming, that there's always an infinite more exploration to be experienced. And what I realize too is that the more I show up to practice in spiritual practice and to align with the divine, we build our capacity to respond to the world around us rather than react. And don't we need in the world right now more first responders rather than first reactors? And so, L, of course, is for let it go. And I know that the lyrics are so beautifully inspirational in that song. It says, let it go, turn around and slam the door. But what if we go within and open the door? What if we sang, go within and open the door? But letting it go is letting go of the fear that keeps us in that paralysis, in that frozenness. I absolutely love the way Elizabeth Gilbert writes a letter to fear in her book, Big Magic. She says, dearest fear, creativity and I are about to go on a road trip together. I understand that you will be joining us, because you always do. And I acknowledge that you believe you have an important job to do in my life and that you take your job very seriously. And apparently, your job is to induce complete panic whenever I'm about to do anything interesting. And I may say, you are superb at your job. But understand this. Creativity and I are the only ones that will be making the decisions along the way. I recognize and respect that you are a part of this family, so I will never exclude you from our activities, but still your suggestions will not be followed. You're not allowed to have a seat. You are allowed to have a seat. You're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. And you're not allowed to touch the road maps. You're not allowed to suggest detours. You're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature, and dude, you are not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to drive the car. And so that's what I think L for let it go is. It's to let go of the fear. It's not slam the door so much, but it's open a door to hello fear, and I'm driving the car. I'm driving this car. Come along with me. We're all going in this together. And finally, T, as Kathy so wonderfully introduced us to Thomas Troward in our readings today. T is for Thomas Troward, but it's also for transcend the past. Thomas Troward was a famous New Thought judge and teacher who greatly influenced our founder in Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes. And he had a famous saying that he taught, and it was that principle is not bound by precedent. And what does that mean is that our spiritual principles that we create anew every single moment, every single day, and that everything that precedes us, the past, is in the past. That's part of the song too, huh? The past is in the past. Principle is not bound by precedent. So if you are in a frozen moment, the next moment, choose again. Unfreeze, melt into the divine within you. And so, like I say to the kids in my group at school, if you have been planting seeds of stinkweeds in your garden and they keep growing, then plant a different seed. Choose a different thought. Choose one that might be something that feeds you, a wonderful vegetable or fruit, or even a rose garden. But that we have the opportunity to choose again and again and to melt differently in each moment. No, there it is. And so, I encourage all of you beautiful spiritual beings that you are to begin to melt wherever you find yourself frozen in your present life circumstances. Begin to live and love your life right now because you are on your path to greater and greater unfolding and becoming. Start here. Live from your joy. And let it go. Let's go to prayer. So let's just turn within and feel the deep, present sacredness of right now. Feel that divine spark within your heart and open to deeply melt into that love that is who you are, who each of us is. For I know that any place in your life where you are feeling stuck or frozen, you simply let go. You let go and you allow that divine light to touch those places, to melt, and to fully embody that beautiful love, that love essence and presence that is the truth of who you are, who I am, and who each one of us on this beautiful planet is. So we say yes to that greater becoming. We say yes to that mindfulness, to that evolution of our inner world, that deep-rooted presence in spiritual essence. I am so grateful. I am so grateful, for I know that this community known as CSL Boulder Valley is so blessed and so filled with love and so abundant and so on target to be a beacon of peace, of love, and of transformation in this world. I know that is the truth for each one of us. And so with this gratitude, we take all of this into our hearts this morning. And we allow it to be, for we know that it is absolutely made manifest as we have placed it in that creative law that is love expressing always And we can all, in this gratitude, affirm this together by saying, "And so it is." Amen. So this is the time in our service where we open to our giving. Not yet? It is not. It is not.